You are about to receive messages that may be harmful to your mental state. Your sense of reality will be questioned. Your view on things will be altered. You are now part of the meta. The meta controls everything. The meta determines what will and will not happen. You are watching The Meta Show.
We should be live. Yes, I think I fixed it.
And we're waiting.
Well,
we're waiting.
What the fuck?
There we go.
What is going on today?
Somebody is saying, so this is Fatby TV. Is Fatby, like, hosting or something?
Yeah, there's a guy streaming, not us, so...
Yeah, because he started his Fatby stream right before we started ours, so I think I hosted it.
Alright, let me make sure... I hit the unhost command, and it didn't say that we were hosting anything.
No, it didn't.
There we go.
Like, it shouldn't have been hosted. Well, either way, we're here now. That was weird. That was... oops.
Things are a little strange on the internet today. We had some, like, Discord was going down when we were doing an interesting Discord promotion. Our devs with the resub, 28, Silverius, 6 months. Thank you very much, both of you. So yeah, we're here. We are continuing our series of specials on analyzing what the fuck happened in 2018, the longest decade in gaming. 2018 was a hell of a year, and we have Aerith. Now, on many occasions in the past, we've had Aerith on, and during sort of the white-hot phases of the metagame, you know, he can sometimes be a bit of a dick, but one of the things that's going to be fascinating today is you guys are going to get a look behind the curtain. So we have brought more like teacher Aerith to the table, who's going to explain a lot of the hows and whys of the maneuvers that the Imperium made economically through 2018, and just sort of let people see what the hell was going on behind all the smug. So I think it's going to be a pretty cool show. We want people to be really engaged with Q&As, so you guys can feel free to ask questions during the show. And of course, we always do Cool Kids only at the last 15 minutes of the show for subscribers, which should be fun. Is the Z-Bug and Chaos579. Thank you very much for the sub.
So we have a great little teaser image for you. This, again, I want to give a quick shout out. There is a lovely goon by the name Dictator. Imperator. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. I'm probably fucking it all up.
Dictator Imperator.
Well, yeah, he just has it spelt very French. It's weird. So anyway, the point is, he went through and compiled year-to-date 2018. So thanks to December's MER numbers coming out this week, we were able to get year-to-date. And this is an image of mining in EVE for 2018. So as you can tell, as the circles get bigger, more mining happens. So this is what EVE looks like, and I think like the top regions are the ones you'll see here, and some of them are just kind of like lost in the fog. But so yeah.
So is this graph that you're putting here? Is this for the entire year?
This is yeah. This is all of 2018 right here. So this is just a very like cool looking graph. The one you're gonna like is the next one. This is what I like to consider tallsting.jpg. This is all of mining in 2018. I don't know if this is big enough for people to notice, but I will have the images.
You can see Delve is the big one.
Yeah, I'll have
then Esoteria? Is that Esoteria?
Yeah, so it's Delve, then Esoteria, then Quarius, then a skip, then the Forge domain, then Fountain, then a bunch of high-sec, and then branches somewhere down there.
Well, you know, what's curious to me about this, and I want to bring in Aerith here in a second to comment on this. Coming as a total layman, one of the things that the Mining 2018 graph tells me, I'm not surprised that the Imperium is #1 on mining. That's not a shock. What is the interesting bit for me there is seeing Esoteria as, was it #2 on the graph? You took it down.
Yeah, it's #2.
Was like,
yep, sorry.
And so that, I think, shows us the beginning of, you know, the Legacy Coalition beginning to play the game as the developers intended. So now you have the Imperium and Legacy both doing it the way that the devs have suggested. You can go ahead and take it down now so we can see the
Yeah.
resubs. And Aerith, so now that you've heard me and DBRB say some stuff that is probably foolish and layman-oriented, what's really going on here? What can we actually draw from these just very provisional outlooks of 2018? What should we...
So I think when you look at some of these graphs and these charts, and you're trying to digest the data that they're representing, the thing to kind of keep in mind is you can kind of judge an empire based on this data. So based on the data, TEST now has moved out of sort of that phase one of setting up a local economy and setting up a centralized area for economic activity. They're kind of moving into phase two, which is learning to exploit that economic activity for feeding into other systems like production and starting their market up at a better scale. So they'll probably sit in that phase for a while. But if you look at the graph, there's no one else in that phase, except TEST. And then you've got us way down, sitting at phase 7 for this kind of economic model that, Null has to do now to be competitive. But no one else is playing. So obviously you can derive some pretty significant meta impacts from that. You're not going to see players emerge as a serious contender for the strength of the Imperium today until you see on these charts that's represented that their economic strength is growing. The reality is in EVE today that no one's going to want to lose 40 Titans if they can't SRP them quickly. No one's going to want to lose 40 Titans again the next day. And that's kind of where the meta is at, is you have to be willing to push all in with your Titan fleet. So you can kind of digest the meta. You can digest economic power, which translates to military power, all from these graphs. And this is all represented just with CCP data. So, at no other time in history of EVE since they started releasing the MER have you had this amount of data at your fingertips where you can see the Null meta at a glance. Like, you don't need to read Reddit, you don't need to read propaganda. You have a CCP sanctioned official report showing you the Empire's individual power.
Yeah.
Now you still have to factor in other models like Renners or whatever, but those models today aren't nearly as effective as what you see represented in the MER. So, yeah, like you can see the story of Null kind of at a glance, and I think people have been able to see it for a while. I think a lot of people argue for different perspectives on how healthy that is for EVE, and that's a fair discussion to have, and things that could change. But the reality is what the data is representing now is you're not going to see a significant change in the meta because no one else is emerging on this graph, and you're going to see those other powers emerge on these graphs at least 6 to 12 months before they're a serious contender for anyone else.
So one of the things that's curious to me about this is because we know now that CCP wants people to do what we've been doing for the last couple of years, ever since they introduced refining platforms, we will see whoever becomes the next contender, or at least an attempt to compete with the Imperium or with Legacy Coalition. They will show up regionally on the MER. So I think one of the fascinating things about the meta here is that it's perfect intelligence, kind of like having all of the SOV timers in FozzieSOV be open to everyone. It removes any kind of recon or scouting meta. So essentially, both the Imperium and Legacy, by being number 1 and number 2 on this economic activity, can use the MER as a way to see who's next, who is the next target, just purely based upon which regions start growing, and go, okay, we're going to punch downward, and those are going to be, the places that we try to go after.
The next one I'm going to show here is actually a little more interesting, because a lot of people look at the mining one and they go, okay, Rorquals are broken. Only goons can effectively use Rorquals in mass scale. But the next one's even as, I guess, more telling, and that's the NPC bounties. Again, here you have Delve exponentially bigger.
Can you read off the first 5?
Yeah, so we
it's kind of small.
Sorry, I'll link it in chat for everybody to zoom in, but this is the best way to do it with there. So with the first 5, we have Delve at 128 trillion, then Branch, then Esoteria, then Deterid, then Quarius, then Fountain, then Period Basis, then Veil of the Silent, Cobalt Edge, then Declan. So that's like the top right there. But what's a big deal here is someone pointed this out in chat, and I'm going to ask Gareth about this because he'll get better insight. And I know there's some logistics people that build Titans out there that have told me this themselves during wartime, is that no matter how much ISK you have from NPC bounties, that doesn't buy you the minerals if the minerals aren't there. And there's been times where I've had people tell me, we're out of minerals for Titans. Sell me your minerals, sell me your minerals, sell me your minerals. I can't build more Titans till I have more minerals, even though I'm sitting on hundreds and hundreds of billions. Is that a situation EVE is starting to run into?
We definitely saw that sort of impact on the economy back after the first, 2 Keepstar battles where lots of Titans died. There was a rush to sort of not really replace the Titans. That's not where you saw the rush. You saw a massive rush because of all the people excited that they might get to use their Titans. That was the first time you started seeing back-to-back all-in pushes by, block levels with all their Titans. So there was this hysteria of like, oh my God, we're going to have Titan on Titan slugfest. Like on the regular, I want a Titan. So you saw a lot of uptick in demand. So yes, to some extent, it doesn't really matter how much ISK you have if there's no minerals to buy. However, in general, if you have enough ISK, you can work that out. You can do sourcing deals. You can buy massive stockpiles over time. But the downside is you're still going to end up paying significantly more for that Titan all in by the time there's a pilot sitting in a Titan compared to, say, Delve. Like, Delve Titans are significantly discounted to everyone else. So, if you're pumping out, 1.5 Titans to, every Titan the other guy's pumping out, it's not even a Titan for Titan argument anymore. It's you're just producing them so much faster that it's hard to compete. And so that's kind of what you see in these reports is you need to have ISK. So you needed the ISK faucet, to lubricate your economy, and you need minerals. So you really want to see a profile of each region where there's balance. So regions that you see a skew, particularly drone regions, those are the regions that are very unhealthy and they're not going to be competitive.
Yeah,
let's talk about Branch here. That's one of the things that struck me about these 2 graphs is that you saw that Branch was extremely active in terms of NPC bounties, and yet in the mining graph, if I recall correctly, in the mining graph you didn't really see too much. If you bring up a map of Branch, you'll see it seems to be a bunch of Guardians of the Galaxy, like by and large. From a economic perspective, is Branch getting developed, Aerith, or is this like a renter region? Is that going to be a target? What are we seeing there?
It's definitely a good region. I wouldn't say it's renter. I think it's both, renter and not, where it's strong for some reasons, but the logistics to Branch really prevent it from becoming an economic power. It's too long and too vulnerable to interdiction, where almost all the other regions have uninterdictable kind of logistics just to get to the lowsec. So it's very, very good for ratting, and it can be good for some local production and some export, but it's never going to be like a Colossus because of its geography.
Yeah, so here's an interesting thing. Mittens, you brought up a very valid point. When you look at the graph and the raw numbers on both ends, they're polar opposites. So all the rental regions, places are either rental regions are owned by groups like Russians or Chinese players. Very, very high ratting numbers, but very extremely low mining numbers. Period Base is an example. Nobody ever fucking goes there. Place is a dead zone, right? It's south of us. Tests don't even go farming in there. Shitloads of bounties. They're number on the NPC bounty chart. They're like number
2. Branch is number 2.
No, not Branch. I'm talking about Period Basis.
Oh, okay.
Period Basis is number 7, right? They're over 25 trillion ISK in bounties, but they're not even on the mining chart. Like, that's how low they are on mining. So it's a region that nobody goes to, yet nobody mines there. So that's one of the situations where you look at it and go, okay, that's just a lot of AFK ratting. That's VNIs, that's carriers, things that you can literally do AFK. Another point that someone brings up is, now I'm going to ask Gareth what he thinks of this one here, is RMT. We know RMT is present in the game, and mining doesn't really give you an instant return that you can then flip for cash, right? You can't mine somewhere deep in the south and then have no one that's buying it and then not make any money to then sell it. So is that maybe a part of it? Is that RMT is people that rat heavily rather than mine heavily?
Well, it tends to be something that they prefer ISK faucets that are direct because there's ISK value that they can eliminate the intermediary. I wouldn't say that there's no RMT unless there's ratting, right? We've seen RMTing for Titans now for, years. That was like the de facto way that RMTers would move Titans around, right? Real life payments. We've seen real life rental payments, that kind of thing. But it is, if you're a botter, I guess, very convenient just to have your ISK in your wallet so you can either launder it quickly or do whatever you're going to do with it, right? and not try to convert minerals into ISK and then move the ISK. So, but it kind of goes to the point where you want to look at these charts and look for regions that are balanced. Like if you see a region that's all ratting, you can largely ignore it. If you see a region that's like very, very heavy mining, but really no ratting at all, they're never going to have probably the economic power and density they're going to want long term. So in this meta, you're highly incented to try to find synergies between all the different parts of your economy. And if you do that well, and you're able to execute and grow those markets well, then you're very successful. We're starting to see tests do this. I think 6 months from now, tests will be far stronger on those graphs than they are today. But they're probably getting close. Like they probably couldn't get more than double where they're at now. Based on where they're at, they're going to need to move long term. But they can do a lot of good where they're at today. Try to build up their economic model, learn some things, and then they can go try to find a better region.
Now, when you say that they're going to need to move long term, explain like I know nothing about this, which is usually a pretty good assumption when it comes to economic stuff. Esoteria, big region in terms of economic activity, doing well. Legacy is getting on board and engaging in the economic metagame. But why do you think they need to move on, and where would you see as like the next step? What's a step up from Esoteria? If you were in charge of Legacy's economy, where would you send them next?
Melpay's for sure, like no question.
Melpay?
Yeah, 100%.
Why?
So it's probably the one area of Eve that's better than Delve. Like if we ever lost Delve, that's where we're going. There's a lot of systems with a very dense TrueSec radius. There's lots of raw materials. The ratting isn't as good if you think about it, or the plexing it's not really good. But overall, your total economic output and activity that you can cram into that area is far superior to pretty much anywhere else except Delve. Like it definitely rivals Delve. You could argue it's better depending on what you do with it and how you configure it, or you could configure it totally dumb and fuck it up. But Esoteria, the carrying capacity of Esoteria, they're probably getting close. Like again, you could probably squeeze a little bit more out of it, maybe double where they're at. But if you think double where they're at is still far, far behind, say where Delve is, so they need to move to a tier 1 region, and Esoteria just isn't.
Now, if Malpay is one of the best regions in the game, right now that's all like Brothers of Tangra, like renting space for NC Dot and that crew. Are we seeing any real utilization of this supposedly, hypothetically best region in the game, or is it
none? Like no one's figured it out. Like, don't get me wrong, it would take a shitload of capital investment, which is why I think Test is a good candidate for it, because they're big, they have good economic activity now, so they have good finances. But it would take a lot of people. I mean, it takes probably only Legacy is the only one I can think of off the top of my head in the game today that could probably take advantage of it, or us. It takes a lot of capital. It's going to take a ton of planning. I know, because I've actually developed an economic plan for that area in case is our backup plan, and in case we lost Delve. So there's a lot of things you got to get just right for that area, and I'm not even sure I know how to get it perfect, but I think I could get it real close with a little bit of tuning required. But it's the breadbasket, like if you exploit it correctly, but no one has the resource except maybe us and Test to exploit it correctly, which is probably why no one's really moved in.
For that region, by the way, they are 17th in mining, 12th in ratting, 12th in production. Now, we did pull up the production chart here for you to look at. I also linked it in chat. We have Delve as number 1. Followed the next 3 are HiSec, the Forge, Lone Trek, Citadel, then Esoteria, then surprisingly Tribute, which isn't on the chart at all, pretty much anywhere else. And then
is that because for production values? I'm guessing that's from the Super Capital Yards and Tribute.
Probably, yeah.
Aerith, do you have any insight on that?
It's probably reactions, actually, if depending on what's factored in, but it'll be the reactions. Like Tribute's amazing for reactions and for Super Capital production. So is Veil. But my guess is that was probably some of the light reaction activity and probably some super caps mixed in.
Now, why is that? When a region is good at reactions, is that because it has a very high moon count or something like that? What is it that makes a good reactor?
No, it's going to be really only 3 factors. It's going to be your system index, so how many places that you have deployed T2 TATs, and then how close are your logistic to JITA, presuming that is your output. So you have 2 choices in the economic meta, right, for reactions. Either you export to JITA and you sell everything there, which means your shipping costs are very non-trivial on your final product because your final product is so large relative to the inputs that it took. Or you try to divert that output into local production. Well, Tribute's terrible, really, because there's not any large kind of econ producers up there except I think one guy. So they're not really good at for the production. So they're basically exporting that to JITA. So their proximity to JITA is very good for them. Whereas we're kind of the other side of that model, whereas we consume a lot of our production and don't have to export it all to JITA. So either way is valid, but that's why Tribute's pretty good.
Okay. And then, so these were the numbers. Again, I have the raw numbers here. Delve is big, but here's a thing that gets me is the renter. It feels like when you look at this, a lot of the ones that are in the top 10s, at least in NPC bounties and maybe even in mining in some cases, or in the top 20s, are a lot of renter-owned regions. And it feels like the ones that aren't renter-owned regions that are in the top are skewed one way or the other, NPC or mining. But it feels like the ones who, in the mining category, are just not mining with oracles. That, like, it seems like, because they're pretty even across the board when you look at their numbers, between 10 and 20 trillion, pretty much for all of EVE. Is it really because they just can't use oracles as safely as, say, Delve can? Or is it because of other reasons other than that?
A lot of different reasons, actually. That the safety of our oracles is definitely a major factor. However, a lot of it is output for your, like, you're incented as a miner in Delve so well because you have an output for your, activity. You can easily sell your minerals to producers. A lot of times people are selling, well, actually not a lot of times, the majority of our market doesn't even take place on market. It actually takes off market on the contracts where people are buying and selling ore. So there's a lot of really quality of life things that go on in Delve that's beyond the, oh, my Roker doesn't get killed because I drop supers on you. That helps, but when you have the density we have, when we have the fleets we have, when you have the Locust fleets, which I think people aren't really understanding just how impactful Locust fleets are into these numbers, that all adds up to where, and you have fuel that you can get easily, and you have replacement drones you can get easily. You don't need to leave your kind of cocoon for any supplies you may or may not need, whereas the drones, you're importing everything. So you have lack of safety, lack of logistics, lack of a market for your stuff. So, yeah.
Because I always wondered, and I guess this is a question that some people have, is you look at the corners of EVE, Tenal, Cobalt Edge, Period Bases, places like that, you'd think the Rorqual activity there, save for the fact that wormholes exist and can get there at any moment, would be a lot higher in those places just because of how empty the place is. Like, you won't see a bad guy roll through Tenal unless it's a wormhole or maybe about once a month. So you'd think that more people would want to go back there, grab a bunch of moons, and then profit off that. Is it just because there's just not enough people to help keep the whole economy, like the whole thing?
Let me think about how I can answer this. So some of this might be NDA, so I got to be careful here. So I'm only voicing my personal opinion and things that I know with the numbers that we have as players, and this is nothing that CCP has shown me or whatever.
Sorry, I mean, like, compared to Goons. Like, if you compare to the way Goons operate, like, all of Delve is like a whole production juggernaut, it feels like. You've got the fuel coming in, it's accessible easily, the replacement drones when you get your drones boosted and killed, Rorqual fuel is there, then the Rorquals churn out that money, and then they have someone ready and able to buy it. It feels like Delve is the whole package, but is it because these places are so remote that not a lot of people live there, there's not a whole package there, that's the reason they don't get what they get?
That's definitely part of it, but if that was the only part of it, you would see multiple regions like Tenal and Branch kind of band together and make a centralized economy. But a lot of it is you don't have command and control structure there that's promoting these type of economic activities. You don't have the infrastructure there for the line member to take part in these economic activities. Like, you got to have moon miners to have something to mine, right? And so someone has to deploy those miners. The Alliance took that on originally. When we moved into Delve, we've spent trillions and trillions of ISK on structures for our members to then exploit. If you don't have that centralized infrastructure coming from somewhere, and you're just like Joe Blow on your own, or a very small alliance, you can only afford like 10 or 20, you're never going to get the critical mass you need to make that actually worth your time. Whereas, like this weekend, like, you wake up and you're like, oh my god, it's a Quirius frac weekend. We're going to go and pillage an entire regions of Moon in 2 days, right? Like, that's very, very attractive. Whereas, schlepping your stuff back and forth all the time in Tenal and, kind of grinding out your private moons and TNOL is not something that would be very attractive to a player.
There's a question here from Corn, or actually not a question, but Corn's bringing us up an interesting point, which is it that we are seeing that the rest of the galaxy outside of the Imperium and Legacy Coalition isn't using Rorquals? Or is it that they are using Rorquals, but they're just not using Excavate? Is there any way for us to know what's going on with that, Aerith?
Yeah, based on the kill mails, like, Rorquals do get used elsewhere, obviously. It's not like there's a blanket ban, but we see predominantly they're not. They're using subcapitals to mine. And that is
or by
interesting.
Subcapitals to mine, or are the Rorquals that are getting used? Are they using like miner twos?
Yeah, like you'll see that. Like you'll see kill mills, or you'll see stories where guys weren't using excavators, because when you kind of break it down, the excavators are really where you're going to get hurt in a Rorqual. With Panic Module, if you have any friends, you should live. So yes, they're not using excavators. That's a huge part of it. Or they're not using Rorquals at all, which is a huge part of it. There's not as many, obviously. And the ones that are there are probably not doing it to the extent that we do it because of a safety, convenience, and everything.
Now, a question I have, and this is something that Goons have been involved in because we've been interdicting Cabal Expanse. And I say Goons is like we've been, as the Imperium as a whole. iHubs are starting to fall there. The ADMs are abysmal. But one of the ways they're keeping the ADMs up is they do like a Locust fleet, but they don't do it with any Rorquals. They go out there with like 100 Procurers and little miney ships. And the question I have is, do those make an economic impact at all? Like, it feels like you take out 100 of those, and it looks impressive, and they mine a whole moon in a few minutes or maybe an hour. But does it really compare to like even 20 Rorquals rolling out and doing something?
No, I mean, think about what we're doing with our Locust fleets. We're stripping a region in 48 hours of all the top moons, and we're divvying it up among our people, whoever's willing to show up. So
Can you explain to people what a Locust fleet is? Because one of the things that when we're talking about when people don't understand what Locust fleets, the impact that they have, I haven't seen, I haven't heard a report of any other coalition yet copying Locust. So, Aerith, what are we seeing there?
Okay, so let me back up a little bit. So you may have seen that CCP released, I don't know, a long time ago, but after the patch, for these new moons had come out, a graph that basically showed, how many people are using what timing rate. So whether they're fracking their moon every week or every few days or once a month or every 2 months, right? So we go for the max 56-day frac, right? That is our standard policy in Imperium. And the reason we did this was within the finance team, we had figured out the meta really, really quickly, like right on, where we knew that the optimum method was going to be to, one, eliminate the different windows of downtime, so you're always maximizing your moon, and two, to make the moon's output as large as you can make it for the effort of coming to that moon for your players. So we went for max fracs, and what we've done is we time all our fountain moons for a certain day of the month, or actually, weekends usually. We try to keep most of these on the weekends for the max amount of players, and then we'll time Quirius, all the moons in that region. And then Delve will be a little bit more of a free-for-all, spread around the month, and during the days of the week for the casual players to come in and get some wealth. But what we do is then when those weekends come, we say, okay, it's Locust Fleet, here's the times. We form up, I think the last one was 500 Rorquals. 500 Rorquals.
When we did one of the first ones and we saw like 120 Rorquals, we thought that was a big deal. And now over the course, because I think we implemented the Locust Fleet began in 2018. I think that was a 2018 innovation. So when we saw the Imperium first introduce Locust Fleets, it was like, whoa, 120. And if you're getting to a point where now a Locust Fleet can have at most 500 Rorquals, that's bigger than a lot of Titan fleets.
I just want to point out, just so the numbers here real quick, so Eric can go back to what he's doing. 500 in terms of numbers, that's 1.5 trillion in Rorquals and Fits. Just if they all used excavators, that's 2,000 excavators. So that's 2 trillion in excavators if they're all using excavators, by the way.
Oh, you pretty much are. Like Locust Fleet, it's all excavators. And right behind the Locust Fleet, so you have all these Rorquals on field. And, people might be thinking, well, why didn't somebody go drop that or dread bomb it or whatever? And it's because you have a pile of Titans and Supers sitting on in a station central to that area. So a capital umbrella. We move all our Supers for that weekend. We run a capital umbrella for the Roker fleet, and if anyone were to drop it, and all the Rorks were together. So 500 Rorks will tear you a new one. I don't care who you are. But if you were dumb enough to drop Titans or Caps, we're going to drop a Super Cap fleet on you, and you're next to Delve. So it's not like anyone can escalate on that.
Right.
One of the things that I would be curious about seeing is now sort of moving toward a future predictions about what we're going to see in 2019 as the year goes on. What do you think are going to be some of the biggest economic trends that will impact the player base in the coming year, Aerith?
I think the offshoring or the lack of stability in offshoring, depending on how long Test is willing to keep punching up there in Horde and the random players with lower taxation rates. So that'll be interesting.
What do you mean by offshoring?
So the perimeter citadels. So everyone that's offshoring out of JITA for Plex or Injector markets, it'll be interesting to see, because the meta was stable there for a while. Over a year it was pretty stable. So the tax rates that will get set in that area of the game, and then how that will translate to some pricing, who the winners and losers are, that'll be interesting. You're not likely to see us change too much substantially in Delve because we're trying to work through some economic bottlenecks right now. I think we're getting there, so you probably will see Goons starting to take over more of the T2 ship market throughout the year. You're likely to see Legacy continue to grow. They have some growth room, but again, I think long term they're going to have to decide, do they want to move or do they want to just stay where they are and kind of churn it out at the rate they're maybe double from 4 to 8 trillion or something like that. But, kind of cap out, and are they satisfied with that? And they kind of want to do a more nomadic style, whatever. I think it's going to be a year where organizations like Horde just continue to fall further and further behind the meta because they're choosing not to participate in this meta. Maybe that's not fair. Maybe they haven't made that active decision, but they are not effectively participating in the meta. And so as long as they don't continue to do so, that large amount of bodies or meat shield, whatever you want to call it, for the Northern Alliances will not grow and will not get more powerful. It isn't like NC or PL or GOTG are about to become super economic powers based on the data we're seeing. So the meta is going to be a little stagnant for 2019. You can't invade Delve. No one's got enough money or enough ships to do it. Okay, so Goons aren't going to be dislodged in 2019. Okay, who's next? Okay, Test. Well, no one can mess with Test as long as we have their backs, so Test can't be touched. I think Test could probably beat the North on their own at this point anyway in a real war, as long as the East doesn't come in. But either way, we'd be there for them, so that's not going to change. Okay, so now you got the South. The Southwestern Quad is totally locked up. The Southeastern Quad is not likely to change between a split. So I don't see Fraternity going to war with Test in 2019. I think there's probably a recognition on their part that would be foolhardy. So that front is not going to reemerge. I think everyone learned the lesson. They got puppet mastered by the North a little bit in that conflict. So that is not likely to occur again, which means that the only content can either be the East or the Northwest. So that's probably where we see some conflict. Maybe the Northwest around the Clown Ring area, depending on what happens with Tri, or where some of the Northern Alliances decide that their Maginot line will be, whether it'll be period basis or Cloud Ring or wherever. So that is likely to be the conflict points, like north of Fountain, Geminate or just east of Geminate, and around that circle is probably where we're going to see the conflicts.
A question I have, and this is something that I've been thinking about since I started doing this yesterday, looking at the numbers and stuff. Because of Malpus being so good, and the drones as a whole, I've had several people PM me and say the drones are really good for making excavators and making the stuff you need to make carriers work well. So it's good for the money-making groups. Would you ever see the North just say, you know what? Alone, we may be making a shitload of money for our leadership. Vince may be pocketing a shitload, and the guys in Skill U that are the leadership might be pocketing a lot of the renters, and just say, you know what, fuck renters, let's all move into the drones together and start building our economy like Goons. Do you ever think something like that would happen, or are they just going to keep being content with, the 10 or so leaders making shitloads of money, like in the case of Horde, where Gobbins tends to make hundreds of billions disappear every month, or are they going to just change?
No, I think they've got two big problems that's facing them. One, quite frankly, the egos involved are incapable of surrendering power and control, right? who's going to get the crown? I don't think they could figure out who's going to get the crown and who the number 2 and number 3 are, or what their organizational structure is. So leading into that, then, is they don't have enough command and control to do it. I think Test does, which is why I would recommend they do it, but the North doesn't. They have a lack of critical command and control people. It's hard. I get it. I mean, even we've got half a dozen like super rockstar GSOL people that we need to have minimum, plus another probably dozen under them. We have 2-3 finance people left, and that's concerning us. But the other alliances may not even have any. So without that kind of critical mass of command and control, without the being able to put aside their personal agendas and their egos, no, I don't see them doing that.
Yeah, because that leads to a thing where, like, you look at some of these places, like you have Try's moving in apparently up north on NC.'s couch to kind of rebuild, but they're having even a struggle against the remainders of Lowsec. You have Snuff keeping them from onlining Fortizars, and that's a big mess. And then you have you have Test, who's literally taking on the whole North right now by themselves. You saw a Dread fight the other night where Test made a mistake and got screwed up a couple days ago. Lost to 80 Dreads. But the Test kind of just wrote that off and was like, yeah, well, we make that much a month easily in your high sec that we took from you. But the question is now, it's like, I mean, what next? Like, 2019's coming up. Do they... Gobbins has already wrote off that he's ever going to become an economic group. I mean, he did that when he betrayed the invasion of Branch, right? Like, when he told Sort to get fucked, we're not going to mine, we're not going to make money. But at the same time, he's telling his members, let's do the road to trillions, and let's mine in all our procures, and let's work really hard. Why? Why would you tell the big alliance leaders that you don't want to make money, and you just want to fight and brawl and have fun, but then tell your own guys to go make money?
Well, I think you got to remember the position some of these alliances are in, or these alliance leaders, rather.
Okay.
They have a tenuous alliance with some of these people, right? So NC and GOTG, I mean, they're close, but there's some daylight between them. NC obviously was very famous for kind of sitting on the fence during this last conflict, and you could argue was even a little anti-GOTG at the end. Vince tried to play the sitting on the fence game. He played it fairly well, but I don't think that it left a good taste in anyone's mouth. That any of them really have confidence in the other party coming to their rescue. So that means that if you're them, you're doing the calculus that, okay, I need to make sure that my guys are as rich as possible to survive a prolonged conflict the next time one comes around. Because as I like to remind people, that is the lesson we learned in the Casino War, was our people ran out of ISK before the Alliance ran out of ISK, because people need to buy Plex to Plex their accounts. So you got to have your members rich, right? So it's a smart leader that recognizes that his people need to be wealthy and not just the alliance. So in that background, you have all these guys kind of eyeing each other like, hey, will my buddy backstab me? Will my buddy support me if this other guy punches me? Will he have my back, or not? And if he has my back, can he financially afford to have my back? Will I have to subsidize him? Whatever. So you have all that context. But if you break that down, that means really there's only 3 paths that they need to worry about in 2019. Do we return to GOTG space after the 6 months has expired? Do we go through Tribute and smash NC? Or do we go through Geminate, starting with Horde? So if you're any of those leaders and you know that those are our 3 options, all you really care about is preparing for you to be the only man standing on your own. And the best path forward would be to make your members rich and fill your coffers right now, because someone clearly is going to get invaded. It's not like we're going to sit here for a year and change just bored. That's not going to happen. What the style of an invasion may be, who may be involved, will Test beat everybody up before we get there? I don't know. Maybe, but those are the kind of things that I would be thinking of if I'm those leaders and I'm sitting in their chair.
I have a couple questions here, which is one of the things that we're seeing here in chat is people are pointing out accurately that a lot of the foes of the Imperium and Legacy Coalition, a lot of those foes are constantly complaining about how they would like to see passive moon mining return. They want to have a rig added that will allow a platform to do passive moon mining. Now, there's a couple of interesting nuances to this argument. First of all, it's dumb and whiny, which isn't an interesting nuance. But Aerith is in the unique position of both being a economic savant as well as a member of the CSM. So there's a couple of angles I want to explore here. One is what would actually happen if CCP implemented some form of passive moon mining? For example, in Delve, we have more than it's in thousands. We have thousands of platforms, and if CCP suddenly allowed platforms to be mined passively, would that actually provide the strategic advantage that NC.dot, Skill Yourself, etc. are asking for, giving everybody in the galaxy the ability to turn platforms passive? So that's the first question. And the second question is, what do you is there any likelihood of this actually happening? Does this have legs, or is this, is CCP actually committed in a way that we can rely upon to the idea that people should live in their space and work in their space?
Yeah, so first I'll start with the CCP angle. I don't think there's any scenario where CCP wants a game that people are encouraged just to make money by not logging in. The whole thing is how many people can be active in the game at a time, right? That's what gaming companies want. They want you to log in. They want you to play their game. They don't want to hand you passive income sources like R&D agents. God damn it, remove R&D agents. So there's that. Then you have a kind of a scenario where there's people that make these kind of suggestions don't think of any second or third order effects. They focus on what will make us more competitive with goons. Oh, well, if I get more passive money, I'm more competitive. No, you're not. You're going to fall further behind, because who already has, what do we have? 30, no, that's without keeps. So 41 trillion fucking ISK in structures. Now think about that. That's an accurate number. I ran it a month ago. 41 trillion. So you're starting 41 trillion in capital behind us. So we're going to have passive crap going day one on 41 trillion ISK worth of crap. Everyone else is going to have to start from zero. Okay, I will take that change all day and twice on Sunday, but it's not helpful for the game, and it doesn't make people more competitive with us.
Here's the thing. You bring up the passive thing. A lot of them are pushing for this passive thing to chat, by the way, because unlike moon mining, structures don't have a limit to how much you can shove in them, right? They're like a station. You could just keep throwing things in there. So these guys want a passive structure to mine so that they can just store 1, 2, 3 months worth of stuff and then do it once or twice or 3 times a month at best to make money, right? Where moon mining, you had to do it every 2 weeks when it was passive. You had to go empty them. You had to have a GSOL team to get out there and empty these moons consistently. And it burnt people out in the north. You had guys, routinely we'd have articles where a guy just stole 1 trillion ISK in Moon Goo because he was the only one doing it and nobody paid attention. But with structures like these new structures, you can literally make it an infinite thing. Right, where Tuzzy points out. You can put a year of fuel into them, let them mine for a year, and then pull out your money a year later because no one's ever going to shoot it. So that's a thing that I think a lot of people that are detractors to non-passive income, that's what they want. They don't want to have to play. But let me ask you this, Aerith, and with PA buying EVE, one of PA's biggest things is daily rewards and login tasks where you sit there logged in for an hour, 2 hours, 5 hours, and they give you these big rewards. That's a thing PA does, and we're seeing EVE test the waters with that. So I feel like that you wouldn't want an AFK game, especially if PA's running the show now, right?
Yeah, I don't think anyone, in a seat of power at CCP is going to want a game where people just kind of log in once a month and collect their money. That's not a good game. So I think that people that are seeking that sort of passive income source, they're just screaming into a hurricane. No one's going to listen to them. It's not a reasonable request. You should have to play the game to generate wealth, or at least log in, to do so. Whether a producer, I'm a very large producer, I still have to, contribute several hours a week to keep it going. So, I shouldn't be able to log in and just collect wealth, once a month. But I want to kind of give a little bit of background too on just how big the disparity is. One of the things that we did with our system was then when we had private individuals that wanted a moon within our space and so they could mine it, we said, great, you're going to give us the structure and you're going to give us fuel. And so I think right now we're getting a year or something like that. I don't know. We got a ton of fuel. And the purpose of this was to fortify our space while still generating wealth. And so now we've got a scenario where we have thousands of structures that were given to us that are fueled So it's not like they're going to be short timers all throughout Delve. And so we try to find those synergistic opportunities to where we can enhance our space, enhance our defensive posture, and still enrich ourselves and our members. And you don't see other alliances right now setting policies that do that sort of thing. They make these short-sighted policies, or they're not really thought through ones, and it's like, okay, but like, remember the famous one we used to make fun of was the 30% tax on their moons. Like, you could have any moon, but you got to pay 30% of its income a month. Like, that's ridiculous. Like, that is super repressive, and you're not going to get people that want to give that much capital away just so they can give you a 30% tax. It's tax the shirts, not the cotton type thing, and they're taxing cotton. It's like, okay, but your economy's screwed.
That's why I feel like with renters, it feels like it promotes people to AFK rat in like 6 VNIs. Like, there was a recent post by a guy who RMTs on Reddit where he was like, hey, it was just easier for me to use 20 Gilas than risk a couple of Nixes or go Rorqual mining, because if I lost all those ships because my bot fucked up, oh well, I just get new ones. And when you have a rental structure, does it not promote that kind of like producing and money making for yourself on a grander scale, or does it promote easy money so you could pay your renters and then still pocket whatever you have left?
It definitely promotes corruption, I'll say that much.
Okay.
It also essentially ensures that your density is going to suck, right? Because you're renting a piece of space to either an individual or a very small group of individuals, and that is always going to result in unoptimized space. Like, you're never going to fill it up. Like, I can't remember. I think of maybe twice when we rented with Publord did we ever have a system fully utilized by a corporation that was renting from us. And I think both of those corporations now are either in the Imperium. I think they're both in the Imperium now. So that's a very rare thing. You're guaranteeing by renting that you will not properly utilize space, and that's not smart. But it is very easy to generate income that way. So it's very good for regions that you would otherwise let lay fallow, like floodplain regions. It's valid model there, but it's not a valid model if you're trying to build an empire or have a home region.
One of the things I want to get into here is something that has been brought up in the comments, is the lack of leadership that we've seen from the what do we even really call them? It's just this mishmash. If it's not quite Guardians of the Galaxy, it's the same old bad guys from the Casino War, right? Like the NC Dot, the PLs, the Guardians of the Galaxies of the world. In order to really utilize the economic system at scale as it has been designed by CCP to require active engagement with the game, with PvE, with planning and organization, you need planning and organization, and you need population density. So one of the things that's been fascinating for me is you saw Legacy Coalition sort of get in the game. And what do you see about Legacy Coalition that you don't see about, the Guardians of the Galaxies, the NC Dots, the PLs of the world? You see centralized leadership. There's no argument that Test is, in charge of Legacy, right? You don't see any sort of squabbling or infighting there. At least the kind that gets out into the space news media. What has been so strange to me about watching our enemies not engage with this is there is an opportunity for somebody like a Vince Draken or Sword Dragon to sort of step into the vacuum that was left by the decline of PL's leadership. For many wars, in theory, nobody would really be in charge, and I think that in a lot of ways this actually this makes so much sense now. Sorry, I just had a brain fart, or it's a high idea. I don't know. I'm just going to lay some shit on you guys. We'll see if this works, okay? So for a long time, I have been wondering why it is that the culture of the Imperium's enemies in many wars has never really had a strong central leader, right? You have your Vince Drakens, you got your Sword Dragons, you have your Gobbinses, and you have like the PL cadre. And it just occurred to me that maybe the reason why our enemies don't have a culture that has a chain of command is that for the longest time, the entity that occupied the command position among our enemies was Pandemic Legion. And Pandemic Legion famously would never have any real responsibility for leading Pandemic Legion. Every single campaign had an exit strategy. And that exit strategy was that they had an FC anarchy.
Yeah.
There was only a campaign commander for a given campaign, but because PL had all the Titans, they were always in charge. So now, over a course of many years, that group of tens of thousands of EVE Online players are used to having no real fixed leadership. Even if PL was in charge, the campaign commander would change between things. Now PL is gone. They're still around, but they're not providing any sort of filling in that leadership vacuum. And I was wondering, why haven't you seen Vince try to step up? Why haven't you seen Sort try to step up? Why hasn't anybody said, all right, motherfuckers, PL is in the nursing home. I'm in charge here. Let's do this. Let's coordinate. Let's organize.
Yeah.
And I think it's because for years they have been trained to have a culture of dodging responsibility. And that is ultimately PL's fault because of the whole FC anarchy nonsense.
I think it's better than that because Killer B pointed this out, and it makes it pretty clear why. Killer B points out, when he came on the show a couple of weeks ago, that he just doesn't, like, for him personally, he just doesn't want to FC all these other people. He doesn't want to deal with all these other people. He wants NC to be focused on NC. It's like a country that wants to be focused on only their country. They don't want to send foreign aid. They don't want to help out their allies too much. They want to just stay at home, right? And it feels like that's the way the North has operated for, like, ever. You have Pandemic Legion would care only about Pandemic Legion. If they felt the war was going bad, they'd pull Pandemic Legion out and leave the rest to fend for themselves. Sword Dragon only cares about his alliance. Vince only cares about his alliance. He may use other alliances to help gain his own goals, like NC may use GOTG to defend the space so that the tribute don't get pushed in, or PL may use Goblins to create a meat shield. But at the end of the day, they don't really give a crap if Goblins' alliance dies, right? They care if they survive. So it feels like that's the problem, is that because they care about themselves too much, it gets to a point where they can't give up any of their own to or sacrifice themselves for others. Feels like with Goons, like if you saw like X47, we were willing to drop 100 Titans in there, even if it looked like it could go bad for us. We just didn't give a fuck. Like, we just dropped in, said, okay, Tess, we're here, we're helping you. We'll see how this goes. I don't think you have that with the North. I don't think you have that feeling of, yeah, this shit could go bad, but we're still going to throw down for them because they're our allies, they're our friends.
You used to see something like that, and when I say I used to, I mean like, 6 years ago. Like,
Yeah.
Around the territory of BR5, you would see NC Dot jump in front of bullets for PL and things like that. So at the top level, you could see some degree of what you'd call mutuality. Certainly in the X47 fights, where you saw CO2 giving orders to dock up early, you saw just a tremendous level of infighting. You have a coalition in the northwestern quadrant of the galaxy that just, they don't like each other very much. And they also don't have somebody that they're used to taking orders from, even if they don't like them. One of the things about the Imperium and allied alliances within the Imperium is, people don't necessarily like me, right? Like they don't have to like me. They don't necessarily think, oh, Mittens is a great guy or whatever. But I've been here for a really long time, and the structure of the command and control in the Imperium, and before that the CFC, hasn't really changed, right? Like it's everybody knows ultimately where the orders come from. There's not like a power struggle or anything like that at the end of the day. And what you saw with the FC anarchy culture that began with PL's leadership of the hostile coalition, and then has sort of degenerated into this crabs in a bucket circular firing squad, whichever metaphor you want to mix into this, I think that it would actually be difficult for someone. I think they would probably welcome leadership, but I don't think that Vince Draken actually wants to do it, or he would have done it already.
Aerith might be able to comment on this, and so can you. I think, in having met Wibla several times in real life, I'll use Wibla as the example. Wibla runs TNT, and he kind of does his own thing from time to time, but at the end of the day, he's content with saying, let the Imperium as a whole function the way it does, and Mitten says we're going to war, let's go to war, let's do it, why not? He's very lax about who is the real big top boss, right? He just doesn't give a fuck. And I think that's the problem with the North. And I think that's always been the problem with the North. Even back in the old Northern Coalition, at the end of the day, they just didn't want one guy in charge. They wanted a triumvirate of people in charge. They wanted 3 alliances to have a big word instead of one big boss. Comes back to democracies are bad for Eve. .tm.
Yeah. Twitch. You said that you...
But I love Wibla, and that's why I use him as an example. Maybe I don't speak for him, but that would be an example I would use. Is TNT is just fits into the Imperium so nicely because they just go along with it. And I don't
It
think
goes way beyond that.
Okay, go ahead.
Like, I got Wibla. Like, Wibla is, of all the alliance leadership, like of all of our allies like we've ever had, he's the only one that from like day one would listen to our financial advice. Like, he would sit in GSISC and other private channels and listen to me say, okay, here's what we're going to do, and here's why we should do it, and here's how you should invest your alliance money, and here's how you should do your economics for your alliance, or here's what you should do with your moons. And because of that, TNT is easily one of like top 5 richest alliances in EVE now. They're very, very wealthy because he has basically just kind of followed along with our economic team, all our investments, all our speculation, all our economic models. And so he takes it, rather than just being, apathetic or just happy-go-lucky or carefree, he takes an active hand in running his alliance's finances. And because of that, they're very, very wealthy now.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I don't think you could ever have that North. I mean, that again, this is another reason why, as we go back in time here, the Northern Coalition died, because you had the culture of a few FCs that ran the show who just eventually said, you know what, fuck it, I'm tired of doing this. I'm tired of running the show. I'm tired of being in charge. I'm tired of defending all these people.
The Northern Coalition died because the leader of the coalition and at least his top 3 or 4 people were RMTing and got...
Well, that too.
I mean, Clow, Empyrean, like all that crew, like they were selling supers to PL, and PL was killing them, but they didn't care that they were selling supers to PL because they were armed. So it's kind of tough to tease examples out of that, because that was a total leadership vacuum. Vuck was around, but he didn't care because he was busy RMT.
Well, we're seeing that now with NC, right? Mess. Like Vince, I haven't seen Vince around in a while. And every time we have a guest from NC come on here, you don't really hear anything about Vince. I think we've had Vince on here once in the couple years, and even then...
Well, he kind of doesn't like us because we've been repeatedly beating the shit out of him war after war, except for the casino war, but all the other wars we've ever done, it usually ends badly for Vince. So I'm not surprised that he's a big fan of coming on the Meta Show.
So, all right.
That war ended badly, because we would have never been in Delve, the region I wanted all along, without it.
The casino war thing has worked out really well for us, especially because we never stopped fighting it, and everybody else kind of expected the war to be over because they said that they won on Reddit.
So to the people, all right. So we got a few more seconds left here, and to the people calling for change to EVE instead of changing themselves, Aerith, what is it going to take for 2019 to improve? Like, what is the ultimate thing that you think is needed, even in Goons? Like, what is the next push?
Goons, for our economy to grow, there's several bottlenecks we're going to have to address. I'm working through them myself. Like, I'm actually nearing burnout on almost, because it's just so much work. I mean, compared to the time I have for EVE on the weekends. As far as like what you're going to need to see in the meta, or you're going to need to see more people start choosing to participate in this economic model. Like, you can rage against the machine and maybe not play as much and hope CCP is going to make some change, but even if they do, like, even if they made some crazy model where you're perfectly even somehow with us, you're still now tens of trillions behind, and that's not a good place to be. You're still probably 1,000 Titans behind. Like, that's not a good place to be. So that's got to change. I think in 2019 it'll have more focus maybe on what CCP is planning for us as players, like maybe new features or finishing off other features. I mean, some of those have some meta implications, but I don't think 2019 is going to be a transformation year. I don't think you're likely to see the meta change really at all, and I don't think hardly anyone's going to move. Like, maybe when we march north, whoever we stomp on will have to, but even then maybe they don't have to. Like, that's the meta now, is you can be stomped on, have your region burned to the ground, and as long as they don't want to live there, you can move back in. You're just starting from scratch again.
And that's a pretty significant delay. Like, one of the things to keep in mind about this is when a region is purged of all of its platforms, like, it's 56 days for a max frac, right? Like, if you want to harvest a region efficiently and somebody comes in and purges all your infrastructure, like Aerith was saying earlier, we have 41 trillion ISK worth of platforms in, is that Delve or is that all Imperium?
No, that's all of our structures. Like,
okay,
all
so,
of us.
like, but mostly in Delve, but still some in Aquarius, some in Fountain, but primarily in Delve. 41 trillion ISK of structures. That's a shitload of structures. If somebody comes into Delve and burns all of our crap down, we are starting from zero, right? Like, it's build up everything again. So I think what you're going to see from my perspective, where I would like things to go in 2019 is we are going to be looking very closely to see if our enemies start building up a given region in order to attempt to get on board and engage in this gameplay. And then it'll be a priority for us to possibly working with Legacy, because Legacy and the Imperium now have a vested interest in maintaining their mutual superiority, economically speaking, going into a region and just torching everything. That just puts whoever is left to live there back many months.
Okay. Well, we're out of time. That was a great way to end it.
Indeed. Well, thank you all very much for coming. We will be back next week, and I appreciate all of you turning up. Thanks a lot to our guest, Aerith, for explaining to us what the hell happened in 2018, the longest decade in EVE Online's history.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye, guys. Thanks a lot.
You are about to receive messages that may be harmful to your mental state. Your sense of reality will be questioned. Your view on things will be altered. You are now part of the meta. The meta controls everything. The meta determines what will and will not happen. You are watching